you've talked about SMEs and small loans to women. I personally, growing up, I think that Sierra Leonean women are very, very, very resourceful, and in many cases are actually the economic power in the home. But with the small loans, because I got involved in that as well, there are situations where they give them the money and the men take the money off them, literally take money off the women when they want it, either to cripple the business because that they feel if the woman becomes too empowered, they wouldn't be able to control and dominate. So they literally find ways. I've heard men boasting of sabotaging their women's finance.
I don't think I want to stop you from there. I think the microfinance institutions also have their own responsibilities. Their role is not only to give out loans. Their role is to also teach these women about human rights, about violence against women, about how they should treat their children at home. And all of these issues I have talked about during their sessions when they go to get these loans. So now they have started the sensitization. And this is changing somehow, as I told you before. It has started changing the lives of some women. It is working. We don't have to relent. This is what I'm saying. We should continue on this trend, and I believe it's going to make sense. I agree with the point you raised before. That was a long time ago, and if all the microfinance institutions continue on that trend, then it will help the women.
Yes, so we have to be relentless. That's very good. And yes, economic empowerment, education are definitely the ways forward. Now, another issue, the community. I think I really want to talk about this because a few years back when I went home on holiday, there were several occasions where I literally walked into situations where abuse was happening, and I remember the first time it happened, I was literally shocked. I was shaking at myself because I'd been away for about 10 years, and I walk into a home and I see a woman with a bloody face, and people thought it was normal. And I was like shocked. I was like really, really shocked because this sort of thing shouldn't happen. And it wasn't the first time. Within a period of 2 weeks, I literally saw situations of domestic violence actually happening, and that's really bad. Amy, what is the role of the community in overcoming this problem?
Hello. Yes, Kade, what I feel, going back to Nene's input, she was talking about rescue support and providing accommodation, and very important issue, especially when you're dealing with, to add to that, is a very important issue to the problem at hand. A lot of the time, women would like to come forward to report these issues. And now we understand the police have their support unit, the family support unit. I'm wondering what training do these people have to handle issues of domestic violence, and whether they are working in close collaboration with Ministry of Gender and Social Welfare. These are all issues that have to be explored. However, if you're talking about the African society, it is very important when women do come forward, they feel confident enough that they will be looked after. Not only that, in the sense that they will be put into accommodation, or they have to be looked after with animosity, and people have to be able to give advice and protect, and give advice, and then listen to people in confidence. And then victim would feel protected enough, and we would have a lot more and more people coming forward and be protected. If we look at our society, how it's structured, especially in rural areas and even in Freetown per se, you would realize we have we already have customary settings, which are like the Mammy Queens, in local areas. These people should be involved. They should be the first point of contact. I think, for me, looking at the legislation, they're a huge policy oversight, because if you have a structure like that already in existence, it's important that you utilize it to protect these women whenever they are faced with domestic violence in their homes. It also creates a form of collective responsibility wherein everybody feels that they should say something or they should be involved. In the same aspect, they would do their local dance hall meetings, and in these meetings you can have, after every dance or whatever, you have young boys be sensitized about how to look after a woman, and they grow into a culture. Because even the West did find they're struggling with these issues even now, but they had to go through a journey. And in this process, if we're going through the journey of transforming African mindset, it will require us utilizing our African assets, things like how our culture is structured. And if we use those structures, we can definitely provide proper support for women. We can also ensure these women are protected, and domestic violence would more or less have a positive result. We'll see a cease or an end to it, hopefully in the not so distant future. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Amy. Really good points there, and especially the stuff you've mentioned that Isata alluded to earlier, that the Act itself has policy gaps, and that it doesn't appear to have been thought through, or maybe the problem is so big that it's impossible to have laws that would just be able to solve everything. Very good suggestions there regarding how the community can get involved. Adrian, what can you add on to this aspect of it? What's the role of the community in overcoming this problem? How can we get this sorted?
Well, I have listened to all what the other panelists have said, and I have to say I disagree with them in the main, and I'll tell you why. Now, I sat as a magistrate in Freetown for a period of about 5 years, and secondly, I also sat as a magistrate in Bo. And during that period, I had to deal with a number of domestic violence cases. And I can assure you and our listeners that the community is part of the problems insofar as domestic violence is concerned. Now, many of the cases that I dealt with, where I wanted to take a stronger hand against men who were recalcitrant insofar as the beating of their wives were concerned, it was the women themselves, as Isata pointed out, that would come forward and say, oh, the imam has come to me last night. The imam said we should go and talk this issue at home. The chief said this. The chief said that. The Mammy Queen from that area came around with a delegation last night. So the problem is the community themselves are the problem. You see, I have always... Yeah, sorry,
have we ever had a situation where the community would intervene when a man is beating his wife? Did you experience one where the community would go in and say, no, stop, we're taking her away, and if you want her back, this is what you need to do? Have we ever had a situation like that?
Well, the answer to that is no. What I have experienced is that the community would step in initially when the beating is taking place. Oh, Mr. Ahmed, please don't do it, something along those lines, and then that will be the end of the matter. But as to taking the woman away from the house, that is not done. The community would sit down and amicably try to settle the issue amongst themselves. But then at the same time, that does not have much of a deterrent effect on the violence in terms of it being stopped or in terms of it being continuing. Now, I, for one, I think one of the problems, let me just deal clearly with, again, other aspects of the Act. most of the points that the other panelists have mentioned, they are already contained in the Act. The problem we're having is that the Act is not being enforced and implemented properly. For example, we talk about a situation where we say, well, if the woman is being threatened, the women need to be empowered, etc., etc. One of the things that I used to do when I have a situation of domestic violence, the Act makes provision for an occupation order in respect of the house. I would normally make an occupation order for the husband to leave the house temporarily whilst the matter is being dealt with. Now, insofar as that issue is concerned, many a time the women themselves will come to you and say, "Pa, if you send this man to jail, how are they eat?" So what I would normally do is, I would simply say, right, the husband works. He's been the breadwinner of the family. Despite the fact that there will be an occupation order prohibiting him from going to the matrimonial home, nevertheless, there will be an order as well attached to the protection order which I would make, that the husband must pay certain amount of monies into court each month for the maintenance of the wife and the children. And many a time, that has prevented me from having to send anyone to jail, because I've insisted that if you don't come here and pay this money on a certain day of the month, you will be sent to jail. So, in other words, we are having a two-pronged solution to the same issue, i.e. keeping the husband away from the wife, in other words, preventing the violence, safeguarding the woman, whilst at the same time providing maintenance for the woman whilst the court looks into the issue. So, but as far as the community is concerned, I mean, my view is, and my experience is that the community mindset has always been geared towards negotiating a settlement and say, all right, don't beat her, sorry for him, let this thing don't continue, we will talk to him, make it behave. And again, as I said, that does not provide an effective deterrent.
Okay. In how many lawyers have taken such steps or actually used this law in your experience? Because what you've mentioned there is really good, but how many lawyers in Sierra Leone are actually doing similar stuff? Because they know the law. The people need to be educated. That is clear in this discussion. We know that there's a big gap there, or void, if you want to call it that. But the lawyers know the law. They can interpret it even better than most emancipated women would. So are they using it?
Well, the sad thing about it, Kadi, you'd be surprised to know that in all the years that I spent in Freetown presiding over domestic violence cases, I only had, to my mind, about 4 cases where lawyers were involved. And again, the problem is many of the women that come to court, who eventually make it to court, do not have enough resources to hire the services of a lawyer. And the lawyers do not do such cases for free. The only ones that where I've had lawyers being present were situations where women who were pretty affluent and could afford the services of a lawyer were able to hire a lawyer to come to court to represent them. But most of those that come to court, you see them just walk into the courtroom without any sort of representation behind them other than probably friends and family supporting them, etc., etc. As I said, the problem is once the court wants to take an effective line of action, the woman will stand up and say, sorry for her. So, again, the hands of the court are tied. And again, coming back to the policy implementation, which I think Nene mentioned just now, the Act, one of the major flaws in the Act is that the Act makes provision for the court to discharge a protection order whenever the complainant comes forward and says, I want you to discharge the protection order. That is a major flaw. And until that is addressed, we are going to be having instances of domestic violence continuing with very little deterrent effect.
Well, can I just say something very briefly? It's quick and fast. One point that I wanted to make is this. I think that the police should get involved also. And whenever there's dispute in a home, as we see done here, they should go to the home, pick up the aggressor. The aggressive person has to go in. 1 night, 2 nights. I think they have to stand firm and really enforce the law. If it's not enforceable, there's no way this is going to work. I mean, we can talk